Welcome back for video number 4 of Ergo at Home. This next video is going to focus on taking what we've learned about neutral positioning in videos 2 and 3, which built upon the introduction of video 1, and we're going to try to move your thinking towards your home setup, whether that's at your desk or at your kitchen table or at your kitchen island or else sitting on the couch. In this next video, you will have wanted to complete page 4 of your booklet, using the checklist on page 5 as well. And then you'll also want to take a look at box 1 on page 2 about some different things around the house that you will want to gather in order to think about how you might set up your home workstation. So I'll just pause. If you're still with me and you're still listening to my voice, it probably means that you haven't pushed pause on this video to go do that. So as we move into this, we're going to give you some specific pictures. This is the dining area in my home. There is a dining table, of course. It's a pedestal table, so it's at bar height. And you can see that in the first picture here, that's just the setup without a person sitting at it. So you can see a laptop. The second picture in the middle is a person who is sitting at the laptop and using it. The circles we'll come back to in a moment. And then the third picture is looking at the person from in front of them and thinking about what it is that is not working well for this setup. Now, not everyone is going to develop a nuisance injury just because they are set up in a specific way, but you increase your risk, right? We're always looking at trying to reduce risk of something bad happening using a harm reduction approach. So when we look at that middle picture, we're going to start at the top of her head and just work our way down through those circles. So the highest circle there is around her neck, kind of around her ear, but around her neck. Because she's working on a laptop, she's having to look down, so gravity's pulling on her forehead down, and her neck is having to work harder, and she could develop a sore neck while she works at that laptop. There's a smaller circle there, that's the next one at the front of that circle for her neck. That circle, that smaller oval, is around her eyes. You can see it quite clearly in the picture from in front of her. That sun being behind her, it will come into the window, hit the computer screen, go into her eyes, and then she's going to squint. And when she squints, these muscles are going to get sore because when you're squinting, they're not in neutral positioning, right? Every muscle has a neutral position in your body, and the more that we force them to work, like squinting like this, you're going to get soreness in these muscles. Some people will then interpret that as a headache, and some people will develop an even more severe headache from having to squint. So there's that neutral positioning problem as well. Moving on to the next circle, it's kind of around the shoulders. She's up like this. I'm going to exaggerate so you can see it on video because she's having to get her arms high enough to type at the laptop. There's a circle around her elbow as well. Elbows aren't in a terrible position here. They are at 90 degrees, so that's good. But because your shoulder's in an odd position, it's going to make your elbows work harder. So there's still a risk to the elbows at all here as well. The lower back, you can actually see that she does still have that curve. The longer she works, she's going to start to slouch forward. That curve's going to go away, which is actually highly related to the legs that are currently dangling in the air. Because her legs are dangling in the air, it's going to cause her to creep forward on her chair, trying to reach the floor to support her legs. At which point, as she creeps forward on her chair, her lower back is going to curve out, and we know that we want the other curve at the lower back. We want this curve at the lower back, right? And as she starts to fatigue, she's going to slouch more, trying to get to the right height of that computer monitor, trying to support her legs. She won't be thinking about this, but she's just going to do it. Once that lower back curves out, she's going to get a sore lower back. So we see several different challenges here to this setup. So that was question number 1, identify the parts of the body that might become sore in the laptop use below. Question number 2 had to do with you trying to think of improvements that you might make to make this situation better. I asked you to do 3. I'm not going to use the ergonomic checklist for the sake of time, but of course number 3 had to do with you actually going and looking at the checklist and seeing what we might change in this situation. So if we take a look at the picture on the left, this is what we did with this computer. So we moved away from the window. The window is now to our side. The best place for a window is to the side because it gives you lots of light, but it's not in front of you, so you're not squinting with bright light coming into your face, and it's not behind you, so the light's not reflecting off the computer into your eyes. So we moved away from the window. Second thing we've done, we found a box, right? And we put the laptop on top of the box so that we can look straight at the computer. That way we were looking up and our head's in a neutral position rather than looking down at the computer screen. Third thing that we can see here is there's a keyboard now. It's still not great, it's not perfect, and that's okay, but we're closer now, right? That keyboard's on the table. She can type with her in an okay position. Her shoulders are still a little bit shrugged. If her shoulders were still sore, we could grab ourselves a nice pillow and she could sit on the pillow to make herself higher. So that would be an option, because obviously we can't put a keyboard tray on a kitchen table. But we have a keyboard tray now, so she's not reaching out to the laptop, right? She can get as close to her body as possible while still having the laptop a good distance away, because we want the laptop to be farther away than our fingers stretched out. So if the laptop's the proper distance away, you're going to end up typing like this. But what we've done here is we've brought the keyboard close. The mouse is right beside her. You can't really see it in the picture, but it's available. So we've started to set this up in a much more neutral position. You'll see a red dot in that picture as well. So in that red dot, that's supposed to mimic like a tennis ball or a towel that you've rolled up, and we've put it on that curve of her back so that she's well supported to maintain this curve, right? As you look down at that stool, the stool is now there to support her feet. She could also support her feet on the bar that connects the two legs together so she can change position. And then she could even put her feet up onto that pedestal underneath the table in order to change position. You'll notice none of this is perfect. That monitor is still maybe a little bit too high, but it's closer. Maybe we need to find a better box. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. We know it's not perfect because she's having to reach up for the keyboard still, but getting a keyboard tray isn't really an option. The stool is a little bit high, but it does give her some support. So we're looking for ways to reduce harm as much as possible to get you into a neutral position and try to keep everything over your base of support as much as possible. So that's how we can change this setup in my dining area in order to be as comfortable as possible. As we move into video 5, we're going to talk about movement and changing positions. But one way that you can change positions is to work in different environments. The challenge that brings up is that you're going to find yourself working in non-neutral positions, but if you do it for short periods of time, it can be a good way to reset yourself before you go back to your preferred setup. So one example would be working on the couch, right? Get your laptop, put it in your lap, do some emails. Great, that's a good option for short periods of time. The other challenge that's going to come up though is that you're not going to be working in a neutral position really at all. So let's take a look at the picture here. So you can see the little boy in the background, which I think is just perfect for this pandemic because we've been having to work with our kids around, right? But all those circles are again highlighting things like the lights behind her, so her eyes are going to squint. Her shoulders, she's having to adjust, probably shrug her shoulders to get to the right position she wants to be in for her laptop, right? The entire arm is not really in a neutral position because she's adapting to the couch, which is why this is a good short-term solution to change positions, but it's not a long-term solution to change positions. So we have a shoulder shrug, we have the whole arm, we have the eyes. So what you can see in the next picture is we've flipped her over to the side of the couch, so the window's at the side. We talked about that in the last example. We've also grabbed that stool again and put the stool under her feet because it brings her knees up. It makes her whole body recline so that her eyes are a little bit lower. We grab a pillow, we put the pillow underneath the laptop, raising up the laptop, and it brings the laptop up to her eyes so she can look more straight ahead. Because she's more reclined, she's also able to allow her arms to relax back and get her elbows into that neutral position. So we have solutions, we have options for getting onto a couch and working on a couch. Problem solve through it, no matter where you're working. Think about neutral position, think about spinal curves, think about the 90-90-90 rule, think about how do we get as much as possible over top of our base of support when we're working. And you can start to problem solve how you can work at home as comfortably and with as little risk as possible to your body. So that brings us to the end of video number 4. We're now going to enter into the final video of Ergo at Home. This final video is going to be about movement and changing positions. So we have now ran through 4 videos where we've talked about does ergonomics work in the introduction. We've talked about generally neutral positioning. We've talked about practicing neutral positioning. We've talked about examples of neutral positioning. We've moved into how does this apply to your own home? And then in this last video, we're going to talk about movement. Before you push play on that next video, please make sure that you complete page number 6 of your workbook. I'll see you next time for our final video of the Ergo at Home video series.